How are you, Jake?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah? What about you, Mr. John Fisher, sitting there in the dark? You look like you should have a cigarette in your mouth.
So I have a cigarette in my mouth, or am I like in the witness protection program?
Well, then you'd be blurred out, I think.
With a voice modulator.
Yeah,
Yep,
it was like
yep.
a little bit of a dark hotel room, and they never have enough lights in these damn rooms.
Yeah, we need to just send a camera crew with you all the time. I bet your life is very interesting anyway, so they should just follow you around, record you, and have have people talk to you.
Sure, so exciting.
I'd watch. So today we are going to discuss something very, very much relevant. We are going to discuss war. So that should be interesting. For anybody that wants to join and join in the discussion, be here live, jump on the podcast. We are streaming to multiple channels right now. So just go ahead and click that link in the description or go to www.miingl.com, hit public events, and you should see this streaming live. Go ahead and hit in there, enter, and then we'll pop you up over on the audience. And when it's time, you can raise your hand and you can join the discussion. So, as always, we start out by going through some Calvin and Hobbes comics. Since I'm getting tired of reading them, and I also am trying to set up all of these different cameras to record and stream at the same time, I'm going to ask John to be Calvin for me this go around. So,
sounds good.
Let's go ahead and pull up the first one. Is this the first one you want to read?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't read that.
Oh, okay. Let me also get rid of that advertisement that's right there.
Sorry.
Too. No, you're all good.
I need new glasses.
And I'm going to kill my camera for a second so we can see the whole thing.
Yeah, I can send you the link.
I can read it. I think I've got it. I thought I had to get my chat open, but I just keep clicking on the wrong thing. So give me 1 sec, and I should be fine. Okay, chat is open. So I'm Calvin. So it looks like you're Hobbes, and you're first, Eli.
How come we play war and not peace?
Too few role models. I'll be there, I'll be the fearless American defender of liberty and democracy, and you can be the loathsome, godless communist oppressor. We're at war, so if you get hit with a dart, you're dead, and the other side wins. Okay?
Gotcha.
Go. Whap, whap, whap.
Whap, whap. And they've shot each other at the same time.
Yeah, I got him in the chest. He got me directly between the eyes. I guess you're more likely to live in that situation. Then they both are kind of like looking at their darts for anybody that's listening at home, and then kind of a stupid game, isn't it? That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah,
that one is really good. Just the first caption alone is fantastic.
Too few role models.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good line. It really is. Yeah. Do you want to discuss that one before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, we can totally do that. I like that idea. Let me turn back on my camera. How wow. So, let's start with that. Fish, what do you mean by too few role models? It sounds like it's an interesting topic.
There's just so few ambassadors for peace in our world. Prevalent, like public, popular peace ambassadors that just doesn't seem to exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. One thing I did want to say about how come we don't play peace and not war. So I've got this guy that I stream with on Wednesday nights, every other Wednesday. So tomorrow night I'll be streaming with him, and he really likes to play these very mundane games. Like one of them is we've played together is there was an alien attack on a spaceship, and you're cleaning up the mess afterwards. And that's the game. You're just cleaning up a spaceship after an alien attack. And then after you've cleaned up all the gore and the blood, then you organize because all the things have been knocked over. So when you put them back in their place. And he just plays a lot of these.
Is he OCD?
He might be a little bit, yeah, but just there are people who play these games of peace. Stardew Valley is a really big game, and that is very peaceful farming type game. There is a little bit of that out there. People playing peace now, but it's very common to play the war games.
Interesting, because I think most people on average would lean towards the peaceful side. Looked at the majority of people, most of us interact on our day-to-day basis somewhat peaceful.
Yeah, I'd agree.
They have some inner turmoil, but on the way that we interact with each other, by far and large, people are way more peaceful.
Or sometimes they forget what it's like. I've heard it's very common after people have been at war, they will go to great lengths to avoid that war again. I think in Europe, that's a good example. They're hesitant to get back in. And actually, you think about it in history of America, it's also the same, because after World War I, we were so devastated by losing so many of our young men that we made war illegal, right? And that was the reason why it was so difficult to get America to join in World War II. That's why we didn't join until Pearl Harbor. Otherwise, we would have joined earlier.
Another thing is people in wartime don't like war games. People outside of wartime, they do like war games. So in the United States, first tabletop war game where you have your miniatures battle against each other. That was after World War II. H.G. Wells, who wrote the first tabletop role playing game, but it's after the war because it's not something that would flourish in wartime.
Interesting.
You think it's more the countries that won the war too that play the war games? It's probably influential, I would imagine, in a way.
Yeah. Certainly.
Yeah.
War is an interesting one. I try to think. I try to think of like what would bring me to a point, or what would make me go against my own moral compass of being able to kill, right? Like being able to shoot another human being. Like what would I have to believe in order for that to happen? And it's very difficult for me to understand at what point would I actually kill someone. And I think I would limit it almost to just the protection of my family. I don't know if I could ever be I wouldn't make a very good soldier, is basically what I'm saying. What about you, Eli? What would it take to get you to the point where you would be willing to shoot another human being?
It would take a lot. It's on my lifelong goals to not kill a person, and so yeah, it would take a lot for me to take up arms against others. And for me, it's like very much Black Sabbath paranoid. Richmond trying to make poor men go fight their wars for them. It would take a lot, but some wars are built out. People rising up against their oppressors. I think if I lived in a very oppressed state, I probably would take up.
Interesting.
Also, the armies, they have this tactic that they use of, your job is to simply follow orders, and you have to follow orders. Somebody gives you an order, what you do isn't your responsibility. It's the person who gave you responsibility. And it seems to work, right? The tactics to get people to do this does work.
Yeah, well, it's got to be some pretty crazy psychology there.
Yeah, it is.
Or I mean, then again, it's also just the type. I guess it's the type of people that would sign up to be in war. I know that a lot of people sign up that are in poverty outside of war in order to get a grant to go to college, right? Like
that's want to go to college.
Yeah, so I bet
roommate was that way.
What's that?
My roommate did that.
Oh, really? And did your roommate end up having to go to war, or did your roommate just get to go to college and be reserved?
No, he didn't have to see combat.
That's the better way to put it. Did he have to see combat? What about you, Fish? What would it take to get you to take up arms and actually go shoot another human being?
Well, I was leaning towards family protection, somebody breaking in the house. Eli brought up a really good point, though. Yeah, if I lived in a place where I was oppressed and was starving, right, because the government is controlling the flow of food to the level that my family and myself is starving, I think that could drag me to it. You used a really, I think, a key word, Jake, in what it would take to kill someone. You used the word belief. Like, what would your belief system have to be? I really feel like that's a foundational piece, even for the soldiers they recruit. There's a programming or brainwashing of the belief of ultimately the us versus them.
Yeah.
Right? To make whoever the gun is pointing at the enemy just because of beliefs alone and no other foundational truth, just beliefs that are getting pounded to us. Because again, if you get down to the average person, the soldier on the other side of the battlefield doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be shooting people.
Yeah.
He wants to be home with his family. And so, and he was programmed to believe that the other people on the other side, it's the exact same tactic on both sides. That's the most ignorant thing about the whole topic. It's the exact same tactic.
Completely agree. It's interesting. Have you ever heard that when soldiers are new, when they first see battle, they always fire high?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they're closing their eyes when they're pulling the triggers?
Okay. It's not an intentional, they're just closing their eyes.
They do think it's partially intentional. Partially. Vietnam War. That's fine. Confirmed kills is exorbitantly different than a lot of wars. They were commanded to fire. They just unload their clip above their heads. There's a book, I forget what it's called, but they talk about this a lot and how there's a thing they talk about in war, like removing the humanity behind somebody. So, like, the accuracy of dogfighting planes is actually pretty high compared to the accuracy of people shooting at long range and then shooting at close range.
So the more personal, the less accurate.
And even in medieval times for guns, soldiers who would use piercing weapons were considered the most cruel, most brutal, most ruthless. And a lot of the soldiers couldn't do that. They need to use slashing weapons because that stabbing action is so much more personal. And so, like, even applying this theory to like drone striking, that people are so removed from what they're actually doing. It really looks like they're playing a video game.
Well, I think the drone striking is a little bit more interesting in the fact that they're in the middle of a war and they're literally killing people, and then they step out into a city in the United States, right, where there's no war.
So, yeah, where they have zero risk.
Well, and for that, think about the psychology that's going on there, right? Like,
yeah,
they've got to be like, that's got to be such a difficult job to do, right? Like, to be completely removed from the war itself and then have to go home and eat dinner with your wife.
What these bombs are dropping in the middle of these Palestine neighborhoods, right? Like right in the middle of the freaking neighborhoods. It's not even like a terrorist hideout. It's freaking the middle neighborhoods.
Yeah.
What's the process behind that being okay? Knowing you're going to kill hundreds of innocent people.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
But
that
you
one's
have
a
to make them all such an enemy, like that even the women and children are such an enemy that it's okay to take out that neighborhood of 200 people to kill one terrorist.
well, I wouldn't even say enemy. I would say at that point they're not seeing them as human. They're seeing them as subhuman. They're seeing them as you often hear the term cockroach or dog, right? Like they are not. They're insects at that point, and they're a pest that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah,
They did make a statement. Israel said, "We know that we are working with animals, and we'll treat them as such."
And that's the only way you could ever convince somebody to do that, is if they truly believed that the children and the women and the people, the elderly that they were killing weren't human, right?
But it is a part of the same concept of like removing the human out of them, and that's like why a lot of times slurs start to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So oftentimes during war, certain slurs will just come out that dehumanizes the other side.
That's got to be some crazy psychology. I've never quite understood it. And here's what's interesting is that it must be so effective because this isn't the first and this isn't the last, and it's been going on. And actually, it's been
pretty
going
relevant in our culture. It's been what 70 years since World War II.
Yeah, but not 70 years since the last genocide.
No. But you still call somebody a Nazi. It's a dehumanizing comment. It's still a highly offensive comment. That's 70 years in our history.
Unless you're Nazi.
Okay, Jake.
No, I mean, there are some that call themselves Nazis.
I know, but they were even using that as justification of the war in Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
That there was Nazi encampments, right? It's just a powerful, simple term that instantly makes them so severe of an enemy that they deserve to die.
Yeah.
Or be shut down totally, right? In our verbal wars here in the States, it's a way to shut somebody down immediately.
Well, yeah, you compare them to Hitler, and then now they're politically that's supposed to shut them down.
Yeah, you're so incompetent morally and just as an individual that you're a Nazi and you just don't deserve to be here.
I saw a video of a younger girl, and she was talking about the song "WAP," by Ass Pussy, and the old grandpa was like, "Hey, we don't call them that anymore."
Oh man, that's awful.
Wow. Oh, God. That's pretty creative.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. I find it fascinating. I mean, I think this one in particular is hitting me, and I think the reason it's hitting me, I've heard of other genocides, right? And like Rwanda, I hear of the awful one that's happening in China. Isn't there one happening in Yemen as well right now? Is that what the other one that I'm?
If you Google how many wars are going on right now, you'd be shocked.
Well, and I'm not talking about wars. I'm talking about genocides.
Well,
and
it's a form
ethnic
of war.
cleansing.
Yeah, it's a form of war.
Right? But I think what's interesting about this one is it's one that I'm seeing in real time, and I feel powerless to help to stop it. Right? Like it's like, what are we supposed to do? And at the same time, we as American citizens are involved. We have paid. We have put. I looked it up. It was something around $170 billion towards the Israeli military.
Yeah, they wouldn't be in existence. The military wouldn't be in existence if it wasn't for the U.S.
Yeah, they're the military powerhouse in the Middle East, and it's because of us.
Yeah.
So, I have a hard time with this one just because of that. Just because there's
that's because a book 2,000 years ago said that the reformation of Israel as a country would mean that Jesus is coming.
Yeah.
If you got to the bottom line of why we're so supportive of an Israel.
Oh yeah.
Fascinating in itself, right?
I think my favorite part about that is I watched this TikTok, and it was this Native American woman, and she goes, "Oh, so a book from 2,000 years ago says that this is the land of the Jews, so they get their land back because it was their forefathers' land." And she goes, "That's really interesting." And then she shows a map of the dividing America amongst the Native American tribes. Be like, maybe we should do something about this. You know, like if that's what you're standing on.
Yeah, she's got a point.
Yep, she does.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Do you have a comic?
Yeah, let's go to another comic. I'm feeling a little bit down. It's hard to talk about this.
This one's not going to lighten it up.
No, it's not. I will say, with anybody that's listening, go ahead and hit that link in the chat, or go to www.miingl.com. Join our live conversation right now. We're streaming to 5 different places, so somebody's probably listening. And if you want to give your comment on this, we'd love to hear from you. I'll pull up the next comic now. I think I got it. Yes. Okay, Dad, how do soldiers killing each other solve the world's problems? And the dad just looks at the camera, breaks the fourth wall while Calvin's staring at him, and then looks off into the distance, and Calvin kind of looks off into the distance as well. And then I think grown-ups just act like they know what they're doing, is what Calvin says as he walks away.
Yeah.
This brings me to one of my favorite. I'm going to draw you a lowercase l, an uppercase I, and the number 1, which are just lines. But they're not going to be in that order. And if you ask me why it is this way, I'm going to tell you it's because nobody knows what they're doing. I mean, at the end, I think what do you think that it's somebody being malicious that starts these wars, or do you think it's just really, really shitty communication?
No, this is a religious war. I believe Hamas, in their scripture, it says, fight them into the sea or something, or drive them into the sea. So they're pretty dedicated on killing Jews. And I heard one guy say, it's just people killing people. That's what's happening. We could get into it, but at the end of the day, it's just people. It's not like a new thing between them, right? It's been going on for a very long time. It's just escalated to all out war. Yeah.
It's upsetting, for sure. I think that I don't really. I wonder when humanity will finally move past this, move past the need to kill one another, need to use brute strength to prove a point. When can we finally just sit down and understand that we're talking about philosophy even when we're talking about religion. I mean, you think about it, the Muslims and the Jewish religion are super close. Like they're barely that's like Christian and Mormon, right? It's so close that there's not really a reason to disagree, and it's sad. It's sad that somebody uses something like a religion, which is at its base without the dogma, beautiful teaching typically, and uses that to commit heinous crimes, right? I think that Alan Watts put it best. He goes, if you're going to do evil for a selfish reason. You know, if I'm going to pillage your village and steal things and rape people, I'm going to do that. But guess what? I'm going to leave the village and I'm going to leave the culture, right? They're going to still be intact. But if I take the moral high ground as the goody-goody, that my people are better than your people, and therefore you need to be wiped off the face of the earth because you are sub me, and we need to destroy your lineage because you're evil, then the goody-goody in that situation is the one who ends up destroying the world, because they will burn the culture to the ground. They won't leave them intact. And I think that just ticks me off. You see it again and again. Anytime somebody takes a moral high ground, that's where it comes. We do it with ideology between communism and capitalism. It's the same kind of thing, right? It's this, we can test if one works, and if it doesn't work, we don't have to fight and try to cut down the other one, and we can work towards what's better. And I think humankind has the capacity to do just that. I don't know. Fish, what do you think?
I think until we as humans find peace within ourselves, we'll never find peace as a community.
Very Eastern philosophy. I like it.
Well, it is, but it's just how much you get into the beliefs, but how much of it is actually fear-based. We could call them morals, but behind that is fear of difference, fear of lack of obedience, fear of a number of things, right? So that fear within each of us, it is individuals, gets compounded within these belief systems to justify these actions and kind of drive the actions too, not just justify them, but drive them. So until we can find peace in ourselves, I think it's possible, but that's the first step. I think it's so easy to go, well, how do we stop war? And on a macro major problem, nothing could be done, right? Like that helpless feeling you're talking about, Jake. There's nothing we could do to literally stop what's going on in the Middle East, right? Not a damn thing. However, what can we do? What can we do in our own homes? What can we do in our backyards? What can we do in our communities? What can we do with our daily interactions between everybody we come in contact with, right? And I think that's the first practice, is to look at ourselves in that fear and that. I mean, even in our really, really safe community we live in, we still have others, right? We still brand others. We have the Mormon community that a lot of us brand as others, right? We have within there's more severe or more strict beliefs, like the fundamentalist, and they're the way others. Then, we even within our little safe city we live in, there's different segments of the population that we've othered, and it's not war, but we're putting them on the other side of the fence, just hypothetically. So it's that same feeling until we just can find peace and understanding that there's enough space in this world for all 7 billion of us to be who we are. And there's a lot of grace and compassion, I know, and forgiveness and understanding in that, but because there is, right? There truly is plenty of space in this world for everybody to be themselves. If they don't act like assholes, like operating with dignity and respect to each other within that confine of being yourself, there's plenty of room for all this.
Yeah. Eli, what's your thoughts?
I was just remembering about Nelson Mandela and the conflict he helped resolve. It was generations and generations of people killing each other. Everyone had a reason for revenge, right? his platform was, we need to just forgive each other. Otherwise, this will never stop. This will just go on. Until we can learn to do that, we won't know peace on either side. It just will never happen.
The bravest man is in a gunfight is the guy that puts his gun down, right? Like that. Enough's enough. That forgiveness that you're talking about. It's a higher level of consciousness, right? It's a higher level of thinking. This cycle of it's even the Bible, right? Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That I'll do on you as you've done unto me mentality just is going to keep creating the same cycle over and over again until somebody has a little bit of grace, bow out, say, okay, you poked me in the eye. I'm not going to take out your eye. I'm just going to forgive you and move on. That type of grace is going to be what shifts the world.
I think I've been in that one time in my life, and it was funny because we were saying earlier that to kill, it would have to be to protect my family, and I remember even at that time, I was thinking I was so passive to the point where if somebody was to murder my family in front of me, I even had this thought that I would not prevent it because I would be preventing what is meant to happen. Right. And it was that kind of mentality that this is meant to happen. And what I can control is that I will not kill and I will not hurt another person. Right. Obviously, I've been past that. I'll slap the shit out of you guys if you'd like, if you're into it. But really, honestly, it's like I remember being in that state of mind, and it was peaceful. It's such a good feeling, but at the same time, a little scary because you have to be extremely vulnerable, trusting, and you have to. And I would go out and meet people, and I would have to be extremely trusting and vulnerable. And I remember I'd get these really big guys that were my friends. Right, I tend to get some really big bulldogs around me, and they just like to be my friend, and that's cool. But it was funny. I remember talking to a few of them, and I would say to them, if you ever see somebody beating me up, I would prefer that you don't step in and fight them. And they go, what? And I go, I would prefer that you either do nothing or take a punch. And they're like, hold on a second. No, I can't do that. I'm like, well, then you're not honoring what I'm asking you to do. Walk away or take a punch. That's what I want you to do if you see me getting beat up.
Why not just tackle the guy?
It's the concept, Eli. it's the idea.
Or if it's a big guy, you could just grab him by the back of his collar and pull him off you. And
it's more the idea I didn't want somebody doing violence in my name or for me as well.
You get a lot of fights, Jake?
I did get punched in the face in Orlando during that time. And what was interesting was there were 5 guys that were jumping my friend from Canada. And we were in the middle of the street. He was running from them, and I stepped up to one and I put my arms out and I said, hey, why are we fighting? And he clocked me right in the face. So I stepped back, and then I stepped up again, put my arms out again and said, why are we fighting? Right. And I think he realized at that point that he didn't actually want to fight me, because if I could take a sucker punch to the face like that and only like step back and then look him back in the eye again and say, why are we fighting? He knew that he didn't want to piss me off, but it ended. They left. Right. So no, I don't get in fights all the time, but I have practiced that to a point where I was in a violent situation and I still chose peace.
Good preparation. Never even thought about it.
What?
Like what I would tell my friends to do if I was getting beat up. I've never ever had that conversation.
Yeah, I'd imagine you don't get beat up that often. Have you ever got a good ass whooping? Like, have you had anybody just taking you to town?
7th grade.
7th grade, yeah. When you're a kid, that's really the only time that you get.
Yeah.
What about you, Eli? When's the last time you got a good ass whooping?
I used to play Battle Guard, just like LARPing, on swords, beat the crap out of each other. So I used to do that, twice a week. Growing up, fighting with my brothers a lot. Obviously, I was the youngest,
Oh, you took the brunt of it, didn't you?
Oh yeah, no. So I have definitely been trapped under a trampoline while getting rocks thrown at me. I've been roughed up in my life. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think about it, and yeah, I've been in fights with my brothers, and even friends. Like I remember I had this in fifth grade, I had this skinny little scrawny friend, and I'm like, I could beat you up, and he's like, oh yeah, you want to prove it? Like after lunch, let's fight. And I'm like, okay, and we fought, and he goes, okay, first one to bleed loses. And I go, all right. And then like I go at him and he grabs me and he pulls me by the shirt real fast, clocks me right in the nose. And he stops and he goes, you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Let's go again. And then I get up and then this time he grabs me by the shirt and pulls me down to the ground and kicks me in the face and blood just goes, psh, and he's like, all right, I win.
It's very noble of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
calling out the rule and sticking to it.
yeah. But I don't think I've ever been in a fight where I didn't care about the other person that I was fighting, if that makes sense. Like I knew the person I was fighting, or at least I cared a bit about him. So I've never been in a fight where I really wanted to hurt the person and like put them in a hospital or kill them. Right. I have had friends that have told me about stories where they beat someone to the point where they almost died. Or where they've been beaten to that point. And that's pretty intense. But I guess you're right, Fish. Like if you think about it, that's the same thing as war, right? Like that's what brings you to fight to the point where you're willing to kill someone else with your hands. It's probably very similar
to somebody, right? Like even the simple act of hurting someone with your hands. It's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
Like just gotta be a lot of hate in your heart to want to actually want to hurt somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and at the end of the day, who's the ones who typically get hurt the most is children and women, right? Yeah. By the hands of the men that they love.
There's a great quote from MASH. Main guy asks the priest, what's worse, war or hell? The priest says, hell. He says, I disagree. I think it's war. Because who goes to hell? Bad people. The war touches everybody. Affects everybody's lives. Doesn't matter if you're good, bad, doesn't matter.
There's a lot of innocence in war, isn't it?
Anyways, that reminded me of that.
Yeah.
But yes, crimes of passion are also a thing, and that's why they call them crimes of passion. Because it's somebody who's just wrapped up in so much rage. They have feelings for that person.
We do have I think what's really, really prevalent in the world today also is the economic benefit of war.
Oh, yeah.
That seems to supersede rage at this point.
I have a really hard time sticking to my favorite quote, which I tell you guys all the time. Hanlin's razor. Hanlin's razor. Hanlin. That's how you say it. Cool.
Hanlin, not Hanlock?
I thought you'd get there, Jake.
Hanlin's razor. Yeah, I thought it was Hanlock. I told Eli last time it was Hanlock. It's Hanlin's razor, which is do not attempt to attribute to malice that which can be equally attributed to stupidity. And the only way I can think about that with warmongers that make all this money is they literally just do not see the pain they're causing. But how could they not? How could they not see the death that they're causing?
Well, I think it's that removal thing. They're not people to that. They're plants. Yeah. It's not a person in their life, right? That's not what they see. That's what I.
So, do you think that?
Or they sleep with a couple Xanax every night.
Do you think that? Do you think that war is a necessary evil, Eli?
Well, necessary to tyrants, to oppressors. I think it is. You know, I think that is the times when you need to go to war. It's when somebody is completely robbing and stealing, degrading a population, that's when you need to do something about it. That's answer is usually war. It's very unfortunate. I think this world would be better off without war, but for the other evils in this world, that's what it comes to at times.
What do you think, Fish? Do you think war is a necessary evil?
Oh man, like I really see Eli's point, and part of me feels like that's the same thought process that's going to keep perpetuating war. But if I was in the shoes of being the oppressed, I would probably be all for war. So again, that's a very high level of consciousness of somebody that could be in that oppressed situation to that extreme level and still choose peace.
Yeah.
That's seems impossible for me to even think about. And I'm sure it exists, but it just doesn't even seem realistic to say.
Well, I think that's like why people praise Gandhi so much, right?
Yeah.
Because he was able to peacefully negotiate with the oppressors. With his movements.
Well, but even Gandhi was a racist.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't remember like how awful he was to black people. He thought they weren't human.
It's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, but he did a peaceful thing, so we can just leave it at that.
Oh, we don't have to accept the whole human being.
Let's turn him down too.
Hey, if I lead a life that's impactful as Gandhi, and then 40 years into the future, people are tearing me down about other bad parts about myself, I think I still lead a good life.
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't say he led a bad life. I'm just saying it's really interesting how we overlook those things. Because it was him, like he's
who else was racist?
Who?
All the founding fathers.
Yeah, absolutely. Every single one of them.
Except for Jefferson.
Oh, no, he was racist. He just didn't mind, he didn't mind the look of him.
He was a pretty solid abolitionist.
Was he? I've heard that abolitionism compared to the late stage capitalism we're in now, which is really interesting, and we can get into that subject another day. But and we can get into that correlation another day. I wish for a world that does not require war, does not require that, where that it isn't necessary. I wonder often if we can ever get to that world if we don't be the first one to put down the gun, right? I think that Fish has a very good point. It starts with us. It has to start with us. And when I say us, I mean just you as an individual. You have to find peace within yourself. You have to find a way to reconcile and integrate your hate. Because what is hate other than love? Hate and love are the same thing, just a little bit removed. If you think that hate is the opposite of love, you're wrong. It's apathy, right? It's I don't care about that person is the opposite of love. And so if there's that much hate in you, you know that there's got to be the capacity for love at least. And I think that witnessing these kind of things, this kind of brutality, and I think that it will shape us into more compassionate people if we allow it. I know that the two people that I know personally that were in war zones when they were children are extremely compassionate humans. So I think that is something that we can hope for. Is that compassion comes out of this instead of more hate and more anger.
going to take compassion and lack of judgment, right? Like, can't judge the aggressor in a way that would create more hate. The compassion for the perpetrator as well as the victim, which is an incredibly hard practice.
I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh did it best again, I think. Have I ever told you guys the story of the 14-year-old girl that threw herself into the waters in Haiti after being raped by sea pirates?
Mm-hmm.
So Thich Nhat Hanh did outreach, and so he'd get letters from people, and he got this letter from a man that said he had witnessed that. There's this 14-year-old girl, she threw herself into the waters, they were refugees, and the sea pirates had raped this 14-year-old girl, and she threw herself into the water to kill herself. And what Thich Nhat Hanh said, which it still sticks with me today because it's such a beautiful thing, and he wrote an amazing poem about it. If any of you want to look it up, it's called Call Me By My True Names. But he said, I know that it's easy to have compassion for the 14-year-old girl. We can all have that compassion and put a gun to the sea pirate's head and pull the trigger. Every one of us can do that. But what I'm going to ask for you to do is to do the difficult thing. Have compassion for the sea pirate. Because you see, if you were born where that sea pirate was born, and you were raised where that sea pirate was raised, you too would be the sea pirate. In fact, you are the sea pirate. And when you do realize this, you realize that there's hundreds of boys born on that coast that will become sea pirates again. And you realize that the true problem is not the sea pirate that did the raping, but the conditions of which brought that sea pirate about. And that is how we heal. That is how we cure those things. And it's much like I equivalent it very similar to our own emotions, right? Our own emotions that seem so heavy and hard to deal with. Once we analyze them and once we accept them and we look at them, it allows us to look deeper at what is causing them, and it typically is not what we think. And it's easier to heal once we know where it actually comes from. Well, we're 47 minutes in. Any last words, Fish?
I was just gonna say what you just said felt like a really good closing statement. That's very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was good.
Well, since we are live on 5 different applications, I do like to bring up a certain show that I really, really enjoy. They just got done with The Witcher. Eli, can you remind me of the name of that show?
The Flora. It's FLORE, as in fantasy lore. The Flora, fantasy and lore from the ground up. We talk about movies, books, comic books, other stories, TV shows, even into some of the background of lore into different fantasy, sci-fi, and comic books, superhero stories. We're just finishing up The Witcher now. We will be moving on to Baldur's Gate. Right now we'll be jumping into Descent into Avernus. This is the bridge between Baldur's Gate 2 and Baldur's Gate 3. As we launch into Baldur's Gate 3 and the lore behind everything going on there with all the cults and the creatures and the peoples and the goods and the bads. Yeah.
Well, and always you can join Mingling on Mingle. Our CEO of Mingle, Mr. John Fisher here, and I'm the COO of Mingle. The whole reason we started this podcast is to understand our product and run a podcast on our own product, right? But we're really enjoying this, and we'd love to have you on as an audience member. Jump up, ask a question. We got one last week, which was great, where you can join the podcast. You can join it live. You can ask us questions. You can join in the discussion. And while you're here, you can discuss with other people. You can jump into little clusters with them and really get to know people that are into the same thing as you. Now we go every Tuesday at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. You can find more information at app.miingl.com/events. and just look for Mingling on Mingle. You can search it, and then if you hit that little I'm interested button, it will actually send you a calendar invite. Or if you want to find me on one of my many social medias and you want to just send me your email, I'll send you an invite to this event. Anyway, have a good Tuesday night. We'll see you next week. And as always, it's a pleasure speaking with you two. And I think that we had a great conversation tonight.
I think so as
Thanks,
well.
guys.
Bye.
Thanks, John.